I think the biggest difference is Corporation Act 2001. Australian Act has only 5 chapters. Indian Corporate Act 2013 has 29 chapters. And you can understand the difference between 5 chapters and 29 chapters. Here we want to set all the rules right so that nobody is able to escape the rule. And in Australia, 5 chapters are sufficient because within that they are able to manage the entire corporate sector of their country. Ma'am, thank you very much for bringing out the differences and for making a very detailed presentation about the acts of the 2 different countries. May I now request Mr. Ravinder Yadav sir to please come and speak, and I think especially with the experience on rural banking in India and with the current emergence of Jan Dhan Yojana, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which is aiming to expand banking sector into the rural bank. I'm sure that his experience into rural banking sector, he can definitely throw the light into the difficulties, the challenges, and the way in which banking has to move ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected Dr. Nand Kishore ji, a very renowned personality whom I have seen right from my childhood because I live close by, has been a source of inspiration for a larger section, not only the people sitting in this hall. The management and the faculty, director of the institute, I am grateful for having invited me and also giving me an opportunity to speak on sustainable corporate governance. Now, corporate governance is very well understood and is very well explained in various textbooks and also in the practical excellence. But what is more important and what is sometimes not understood or have not been researched upon in a great deal is the sustainable corporate governance. Now, what is sustainable corporate governance is there, but if corporate governance is good, then the entity will survive, and that is what is sustainability of the corporate through the corporate governance. The entity may be small or big. It may be a multinational company, or it may be a family affair or family business. All categories, it may be a one-man drive, where we call it proprietorship. Even there, the corporate governance is important. Although, academically speaking, when we talk of corporate governance, we are just talking about the corporate word, and corporate words means in law the companies, and that too particularly the public limited company in context of India. Panel from Australia, she's given an elaborate comparison Australia vis-a-vis India, and it was really very lucid and very detailed. Quite interesting. Now, here what I would like to add, even in practical, I just would like to share the practical aspect of corporate governance vis-a-vis the sustainability. There's a corporate governance in this institute also. And then who are the stakeholders, or who are to be taken care by the corporate governance? Not the management trustees, because they are the people who to take care of the corporate governance. It's also the faculty, it's also the student, it's also the other employees, and then those who are directly or indirectly related to the institution. The welfare of all these is basically corporate governance, and in the board of trustees are laying down the regulations, and those regulations are to be implemented by the executives, and the top executives happens to be for the institute the director. Support he gets from is the faculty, and also from the administrative staff of the this institute. So the corporate governance regulations, which you generally call rules, because technically there is some difference between regulations small difference between regulation and rules. That is laid down by the trustees or the Board of Governors. They are not supposed to implement this. They are supposed to oversee whether those are being implemented or not. And the director and the faculty and the administrative staff are required to implement them. That is why if you are doing some mischief, then it is not the chief advisor, or it is not the treasurer, or it is not the chairman. They are calling you. It is the director who is calling you. That why you done this mistake. But this is a rule. Under this rule, you can do this mischief. You cannot do this mischief. Are you allowed to do some mischiefs or not? I am asking you. Are you allowed to do some mischiefs or not? No. Oh, it's a very strict institution then. In order to have the brains fertile, if you are not doing mischiefs, you are not using your full brain. I am giving you food for thought. Mischief does not mean that you tear the sheet and take out the sponge out of this. Or you break your desk. Or you are missing some chapter in your book, you go to the library, tear those pages, put in your pocket quietly. That is not mischief. That's a nuisance. You are harming the nation. You are not harming this nation. You are harming the nation if you are doing this. Must have heard. Japan, if the seat is torn in the train, and if they have a needle and a thread, the traveler will take out that from the kit and try to sew that. And here what happens? If you see that seat is torn, you try to put your hand inside. And you just enjoy the travel. You are not enjoying the seat, you are enjoying the travel. Your hand going inside. Okay, and then when you get up, by that time you take out part of the sponge and just throw it. That kind of mischief is a nuisance. Your mischief should be to extract best out of your teachers. That is the thing. And then if you are taking best out of the teachers, what you are trying to do is, you are trying to make your teachers very attentive and up to date. If you are doing so, it is not your benefit, it is a multiple benefit. It's benefit of the faculty. They will have to go to the library more, they will have to refer to the journals, they have to refer to the research papers, what is going on in the corporate governance or other subjects, whatever they are teaching. And ultimately, it is your institution which shall be benefited. Because from this mischief, your fertile brain, your institution will be known that the students of this institution, they are having very fertile brains. They ask very tricky questions and they force their faculty to remain updated. Now from there, what will happen? This message will reach to the corporate governance people. Corporate governance, Board of Trustees. Now the Board of Trustees will also be alive to the situation. And then what happens is there will be more interaction between the corporate governance people, the trustees and the faculty and the director. And this is how you build up a reputation. This is how you build up standard. This is how you build, improve the standards. And this is a very, very crude but practical example of corporate governance working backwards. Generally, corporate governance comes from the top, the Board of Trustees, flows down through the director and faculty to the student. But I am giving you a challenge today. How many of you are ready to take this challenge? Can you please raise hands? How many of you are ready to take this challenge? That you will force your faculty to read more, come updated. Oh, good. Good, thank you. Now in banking parlance, we also have a board of directors. That is the top level of corporate governance. The board meets on a particular interval which is defined, which meets every month in Indian banking. And these are the people who decides on the policies. Corporate governance people, they decide on the policies. Then comes the senior executives, like I am one of those. We are supposed to implement whatever schemes and policies and strategies have been devised by them. And for whom we are doing? For all the stakeholders. Who are our stakeholders? Those who have bought our shares. That means the shareholders. Those who are working with us, my colleagues, my staff. So the staff. And most important is who? Those who are banking with us. That means the customers, the clients. So, if my corporate governance is good, only then my institution will survive or it will improve. The idea is to improve. Sustainability is to survive. Whether it's an academic institution, whether it is a company manufacturing any item, or it is a finance sector, everywhere this is required. 2-3 things I'd just like to flag here. I think meanwhile we have our chief guest, Dr. Chandan Mitra here. While I take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Chandan Mitra, a renowned journalist, thinker, academician of the country, and I would like to finish in a couple of minutes. One particular aspect in corporate governance which has come now, that management or leadership. It is not gender-centric, which used to be a thinking long ago. And one reflection of this is, now all the listed companies in India are required to have at least one women director. This is a new thing which has come. And if they are not having, there is a heavy pecuniary money penalty also to this. Incidentally, in my bank, we do not have a women director. So we have also been served a notice of the penalty. But we are in catch-22 situation in the sense that our board of directors are approved by Government of India because I am a government bank, where the majority shareholding is with the Government of India. So it is they who has to decide who is to come onto the board. So this is a very good thing to happen because I personally feel that leadership and management is gender neutral. The other aspect which our madam from Australia has also spoken about the independent directors, we have a particular clause that is called clause 49, where 1/3 in different cases and 1/2 of the directors have to be the independent directors. So these two clauses are very good for good corporate governance. Now last thing, since you are in your building stage, I would definitely like to tell you, which is part of the corporate governance for an individual. That corporate governance is the biggest risk in corporate governance is trust risk, the trust risk. And the same risk is also with the individual. Whether you are a student, tomorrow you will be going and working for some corporates. Some of you will definitely go for some startups. Tomorrow you will convert that into a large corporate. The trust factor is the biggest factor. And if you want to build up your trust factor, just 2-3 requests of not forgetting. Don't forget what your parents have done for you. Don't forget what your teachers have done for you. And never forget the institution or the alma mater where you have studied. If you follow this principle, your trust factor will be very high, which is required everywhere. Thanks very much, and thanks to the trustees who have called me. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. Finally, we have our chief guest, Dr. Chandan Mitra. Sir, very warm welcome to you. And I'd like to tell the students that, sometimes in real life, commitment is actually shown. And today, exactly that is what Dr. Chandan Mitra has done. He was stuck in a procession, and because of the procession, the car was not able to move, so he had to walk considerably. And we saw that he was actually limping. Despite that, he walked some distance and he has come here. Sir, thank you so much, and a very, very warm welcome to you. Let me introduce, although he needs no introduction, let me quickly read the brief profile of Dr. Chandan Mitra. Chandan Mitra is a second-term Member of Parliament and is also the editor and managing director of The Pioneer. He is a very well-known journalist with wide-ranging experience in both the print and television media, spanning more than 25 years. Dr. Mitra has served in senior editorial positions of leading national publications such as The Statesman, The Sunday Observer, The Times of India, and The Hindustan Times. He appears frequently on major national news channels as a political commentator, and the Pioneer Group, of which he is the chairman, publishes Exotica, a lifestyle magazine for top hotel chains. An alumnus of La Martiniere, Kolkata, St. Joseph's College, Delhi, and Oxford University, he has authored several books, including Corrupt Society. He was first nominated to the Rajya Sabha by the President of India in 2003, and for his second term was elected to the same house from Madhya Pradesh as a BJP nominee. Sir, it's an honor to have you with us, and may I now request Dr. N.K. Garg, sir, to please welcome Dr. Chandan Mitra. A big round of applause, please, and a very, very warm welcome to you, sir. So we've all been watching you on various television channels, and to have you in person is truly our delight. Now, as I said, that today we are inaugurating the Basant week, and I said that Basant Panchami was the day dedicated to Goddess Saraswati. And when we talk of Goddess Saraswati, there is a unique relationship between corporate governance and Goddess Saraswati. Very subtle, but very interesting and very deep. In India, we believe that Ma Saraswati has given the human race a very unique and a special quality, and that is the quality to be imaginative. Humans are the only ones in the entire creation who have the capability to imagine. So we can imagine a better place, a better way of doing things, and a better way of solving problems. But there is also a problem with imagination. And what is that problem? The problem is I can also think of bad things, of bad situations. So I can imagine problems that don't exist. Even at times of abundance, I can actually think of drought and get into depression. So imagination is like a double-edged knife. It amplifies my joys, but it also amplifies my fears. But how is this connected to corporate governance? For this, I want you people to just visualize a simple number chart. Draw a line in your mind, and then there is a positive axis, and then there is a negative axis, and right at the center there is this point 0. Assume that point 0 to be what we call as Matsya Nyaya, or the law of the jungle. At this point of Matsya Nyaya, big fish can eat the small fish, which means I'm allowed to be territorial, I can be dominating, because I have to survive. And that is an animal instinct. And that is the way nature operates. But we've all come out of animals, and we are no more animals. So there is a need for human beings to outgrow the animal instinct of survival, which means I need to start thinking about others. I need to empathize. Because I can imagine your fears, because I can imagine your pain, I am able to empathize with you. If I walk towards empathy, that is outgrowing the beast within me. And that is what we call as dharma in the Indian scriptures. But if I allow my fear to overtake me, then what am I going to think? I'm going to think, okay, I have to survive, I need to thrive, and others don't matter to me. And therefore, what is the result of it is exploitation. I exploit others, I tame others into submission, I'll be worse than animal. Animals don't exploit, humans do. Animals are not cruel, humans can be. So interestingly, both exploitation, which we call as adharma, and empathy, which we call as dharma, come out of the same space of imagination. And today, since we are starting Basant Peak, we are celebrating Goddess Saraswati's blessing. Let us hope that by lighting the lamp, we pray that we evolve towards empathy, towards dharma, and let our imagination be inspired to be more empathetic. And this entire exercise of corporate governance is a legal framework to make companies more empathetic and less exploitative. So may I request all our guests to please light the lamp. Thank you, students. Saraswati is also the mother of books. So now, proceeding further, let us release the conference proceeding. May I request Vinita ma'am to please facilitate the release of conference proceedings, please. proceeding contains the research papers from various research scholars. A big round of applause because it contains some of the contemporary management thought regarding the theme. Sometimes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So Indian media has moved from very subtly giving objective news to the new culture of breaking news. Everything is a breaking news. And Dr. Chandan Mitra has seen this transformation in his own lifetime. And media also has a very big role to play in corporate governance. Now may I request Dr. Chandan Mitra sir to talk of his experience, of his journalism experience, and as his experience as a policy maker, and also the role of media in corporate governance. Sir.
My friend, political colleague and chairman of the institution, Shri N.K. Garg, other dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Vinita Gupta, but for whose, I should say, persistence, I would not have been here today. She managed to persuade me, but had I known that the place is so far from where I live, and also that Safai workers of the MCD would block my way for half the distance and delay me by more than 1 hour, maybe I would have reconsidered coming here. But anyway, I'm glad to be here because I see eager young faces, all ready to go out to the world and practice what they have learned at this institution, which is progressively acquiring a reputation and importance in India's academic league. So it's always a pleasure to talk to students, mature students, as they are on their way out from classrooms and laboratories onto the real world. I must compliment you for choosing a topic that is very, very relevant in today's India, and not just in India, it's so in many developing countries, what you call the emerging markets. Emerging markets are all over Asia now, and some in Africa, some in Latin America. As you know, there is organizations like the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China. I mean, they are all midway between developing countries and developed countries. But we still have a long way to go, a very long way to go, I should say. In India, I believe the biggest problem and the biggest obstacle to reaching the pinnacle of growth and achievement is the fact that there is so much inequality in this country. As our guests from abroad would have observed, that there is enormous affluence. Some of the biggest industrialists of the world, some of the most successful businessmen of the world, some of the richest people in the world live in this country, and also a vast majority of the country is still abysmally poor. This is the gap, the divide, which I believe is the main obstacle to India achieving what it deserves to achieve and to reach right to the top of the world ladder. You know, I know very little about corporate governance because I came into the profession of journalism in 1984 when even journalism schools did not exist. So we had no formal training in journalism. It was in fact said that anybody who could not get a job anywhere would become a journalist. And it was very largely true, because in journalism you don't have to be a specialist at all. You have to be a generalist. You have to know a smattering of knowledge about everything and not really be a specialist in any one area. But that was 30 years ago. Today, journalism is also becoming specialized, and within journalism there are specialists. So if you, for instance, come into a media house, join a media house, I mean, don't think that because we are talking about corporate governance, in media we don't require corporate governance. Today in media also, corporate governance is very important. And this was taught to some of us in the course of our jobs. In many newspapers, they decided to integrate marketing with journalism, and because of this kind of integration, at one level, news became a commodity. It was to be sold. And whatever sold was appreciated, and the media house improved its bottom line. So we were told that in today's journalism, every journalist has to be conscious of a newspaper's bottom line, the organization's bottom line. Now this is a sea change from what it used to be, but anyway, I think it has done a fair amount of good to the country. And also, on the other hand, there is the downside, as was being explained, that the concept of breaking news. Now, anything done in excess becomes a problem, and today, this breaking news concept, everything and anything is breaking news. Even if it rains just outside your institution for 2 minutes, I'm sure it will be broadcast as breaking news by one channel or the other. Now, genuinely corporate governance and selection of news would not rank in this manner. Because corporate governance is essentially, the key thing about corporate governance is excellence. Why do you want corporate governance? Because you have to be professional, and excellence has to be pursued as a goal. Just as institutions like yours also pursue the goal of excellence. You see, excellence is derived only from accountability. And accountability, strive for excellence, is essential part of corporate governance. Now in India, if you look at our corporates, a majority of them are family-owned businesses. Somebody, a patriarch, 100 years ago, set up a small business. He took it up to a point. Then his children took over the next. And now in the 4th or 5th generation, that small industry or small shop has become a very big concern. It's family owned. But I must tell you that if family owned concerns also do not emphasize on corporate governance internally, they are doomed to failure. If everything is controlled by the family, every minute detail, by people who may be owners, but they do not have any serious knowledge of governance and how to take the company forward, the company will fail. Now, in corporate governance, the meaning of corporate governance also includes, you see, democratic functioning. I was just hearing that gender equality, for instance, today has become a factor. Yeah, the government has today directed that there should be independent directors in companies, there should be, women must find a place in the board of directors, and other progressive measures that have been taken reflect the political establishment wanting to push industry towards a corporate governance style. Now, unfortunately in India, we have not had this tradition, and yet Indian industry has done well. Among the top companies in India, the only one big company which is not owned by a family is ITC. You've heard of ITC? ITC is into many businesses. They basically started with tobacco, but as the tobacco business declined, they branched out into many other areas, and today ITC is a very big concern, and it is governed in a corporate style because there is no single owner. The directors, the board of directors elects the successor of the managing director or chairman if and when that position falls vacant. The difference between that and the family-owned concern is obvious. In the family-owned concern, it's father to son. Nowadays, on occasion, it is father to daughter as well. And that's a very, very good progressive trend. Now, for instance, Hindustan Times, a paper you are all familiar with, where I also worked for about 4 years. Today, the organization is led by a woman, Mrs. Shobana Bhartiya, who is a successful entrepreneur. Her husband's family is also a successful entrepreneur in a different area. So in many ways, these are new developments that have happened in the country and in the sphere of corporates that have given new fillip and a new energy to India's corporates. But today I haven't come to tell you about that, frankly. The thrust of what I want to say, the whatever little I know on this, the thrust is that unless we manage to bring about corporate governance in our rural systems, India will not progress. The inequality I was talking about will never be removed unless the spirit and ethics of corporate governance do not percolate down to the lowest rung of administration or organizational structure, namely the panchayat. You know, panchayats today are the key to progress and development. And it's a very happy thing that some very educated people whose family had roots in the village have gone back to the village and taken over charge in the panchayat. There is this lady called Chhavi Rajawat. Chhavi Rajawat. Anybody heard the name?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what she does? Read up, check out the net. She is the sarpanch of a village in Rajasthan. She came back with an economics degree from Harvard in the US, came back to her village, contested the election. The first election, she became a panchayat member, and in the second election, she contested for the post of sarpanch or chief of the panchayat and won, and she's won the subsequent election as well. And she's really a modern, progressive woman. I've seen pictures of her riding a horse, and I've seen her wearing jeans and western clothes and walking around in the village. So these things that in India we don't like, these women to wear western clothes, women to ride horses is out of question. These are myths. If you dare, and also if you deliver, you have to dare and you have to deliver. You have to dare to be different and deliver in order to gain people's trust and acceptability. Then all these myths and notions and barriers, or the glass ceiling, whatever you call it, disappear. And that's what I mean about corporate governance, that there are no glass ceilings. No glass ceilings for people coming from low economic strata, no glass ceilings regarding women, no glass ceilings on the grounds of caste. So when you have that equality, which is a hallmark of democracy, you have corporate governance. When decisions are taken democratically. Now, in village panchayats, which are now very, very powerful instruments of change, if you don't have corporate governance, if you don't have this equality, you don't have decisions being taken through consensus, you cannot run a village. Because the Indian village administrative organization in the past always depended on the powerful and the biggest landowners of the village. As long as they controlled, they ran it in their own style. And therefore, the village did not really move forward. I must say, ever since the panchayat, elected panchayats, came into vogue, and the government, several governments, I'm not saying that the BJP did something better than the Congress or the Congress did something better, but all governments have been committed to developing the panchayats and developing villages. And today, if you go to an average Indian village, you do not find the same degree of poverty and backwardness that you found once upon a time. I have travelled the length and breadth of the country, all over North India, in particular the backward areas, UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha. There is still some abject poverty in places like Odisha and Jharkhand. But in the others, I have seen them steadily disappear. Electricity is coming to villages, and gas pipelines are being laid. Women are being rescued from kitchens, or at least, smoke-filled kitchens, and children are going to school. Aspiration levels of young people in India have been ignited. Everybody wants to be somebody. Just as once upon a time, only those students who went to particular colleges or institutions like IIT and IIM, or went abroad and studied, only they could aspire to top positions. No more. Now so many new institutions are coming up with very good faculty and very good students. An institution, after all, is made primarily by the students. The faculty is there to guide them. So we find that gradually, in keeping with the demand, for excellence, that India is rising to provide the human resources needed for corporate governance. And that's why I emphasize village again. I would like at least some of you, not all, I know not everybody would want to, some of you who have ancestral roots in villages, you must keep your connect with the village, because villages are changing, and you can contribute to that change by instilling corporate governance into the administration of the village. You've had the education, you have the wherewithal for instilling that knowledge and action there. Now just imagine, you go to your own village or a relative's village, I can tell you, you will be welcomed, and you sit through some panchayat meetings, gram sabha meetings. Nobody will stop you. In fact, you'll probably be able to attend other meetings as well. I have seen being welcomed and asked to participate. Now, if you participate in village meetings or these panchayat meetings to decide plans, because every plan of rural development has to pass through the Gram Sabha and the rural administration. It is not just the district magistrate, the superintendent of police, and those instruments of authority who are going to decide. And that is the crucial change that has come following independence. Before independence, when the British ruled, you had a district magistrate and you had a few junior officers under him, most of whom were British or just a small section of Indians. They kind of lorded it over, and it was known as the Mai Baap Sarkar. The small, illiterate, poor peasant and his family would look to the government for everything. The government should give him and his family something to survive on. No, this is wrong. In a democracy, the government cannot spoon feed you. The government cannot rule over you. The government cannot harass you. You have to make your own cause. You have rights. But people are realizing their rights only now. And here I expect those students who have received the right kind of education, particularly in the field of management and governance, to go back to villages and instill that energy and enthusiasm among young people there. How many of you have connections in villages? Just 2, 3. Surely more have, maybe not exactly your own, but your parents must be going to village, your relations, your grandfather. No, just once again, don't feel shy. I'm not sending you off, packing off right now to a village. Don't have to worry. Okay, better. But I'm sure there are more than the hands raised indicate. But I would urge all to go and spend some time in a village. And I say this from experience. I've done it many times myself. And I still do. Because I am now partly in politics at least. I have contested a Lok Sabha election from West Bengal. So I know what a village looks like, what a village feels like, what a village needs. Now, unless there is intervention from educated young people in the running of the village, in the way a village shapes its destiny, I'm afraid villages will remain what they always have been, which is stagnant. Yes, Indian villages have been largely stagnant. Attitudes have not changed for hundreds of years. As you know, in neighboring Haryana, you have these Khap Panchayats. And what the Khap Panchayats have been dictating, you are all familiar with. There is a need to change mindsets, and that cannot be done only by laws. Laws can take you up to a point. Laws can prevent violators or punish violators. But how about the mindset change? When will it be that Khap Panchayats will not issue absurd decrees like saying that you cannot have same Gotra marriages, women cannot wear jeans, Muslim women must be in a burqa, and these kind of things. They have no place in modern Indian society. That does not mean we forget our culture, does not mean we forget our religious teaching. We can all be religious, we can all be spiritual, but we don't have to be obscurantist. We don't have to be outdated. Modernity and tradition have always blended in India. A famous sociologist once wrote a book on India calling it the modernity of tradition or the tradition of modernity, whichever way you look at it. It is a tradition of modernity on one side and there is a modernity of tradition. So we have to, while keeping our traditions in mind, learning from our ancient texts, because you cannot get better. The kind of texts we have, our religious, spiritual texts, they teach you so much. And they teach you modern governance. you may be aware that in IITs and IIMs, they have introduced Ramayana and Mahabharata as a special subject because they feel that these two ancient epics, which are celebrated throughout the world, particularly in Asia, these two epics have given lessons in corporate governance, in human relations, in politics, and so many other areas. So next time you read the Ramayana, not just watch a serial or the Mahabharata, and again I say read it, not the serial. Pick up lessons in governance, pick up lessons in statecraft. So that is not to be given up. But now with that plus the advantage of modern education, of idea of corporate governance, I would say that that is the way to transform the country. And this is actually happening in many places. It is so, I think, astonishing to find that Bangladesh, which is a very poor country, was a basket case internationally when it was liberated in 1971, is today one of the most successful, biggest successes in microfinancing. How did microfinancing succeed? Through self-help groups in villages. Now we also have, in India also there are many self-help groups which are part of the microfinance structure, and people, and in India self-help groups are run by women and for women. So that's one way of bringing up women and giving them economic independence. And there is that element of corporate governance that comes in when women sit together, discuss, they decide what for the money would be required, and then they get a loan from the government and then they make a success of it. So these are areas where I think we owe it to our less privileged partners in the village who are not so well educated, who are not affluent, and who don't have the advantage of having received the best of education. We have a responsibility towards them. And I'm not saying condescendingly that you go and impart knowledge to them. That may or may not be accepted. I'm saying go live with them and inculcate some values from them, you give them some other values. And you will find that it works. And it will be enormously satisfying when you do it. So when you talk about sustainable corporate governance, sustainable corporate governance can happen only when the ideas and practices are rooted deeply in people's minds. They need catalysts, they need triggers. And I believe that your generation of well-educated, techno-savvy, modern people can be that catalytic agent to spread this across the country, to spread the ideas and practices. And I've given the example of at least one lady who came back from abroad and became a sarpanch. There are many others, many others. Maybe they haven't received the same kind of publicity as she has got, and she's probably the most qualified of them. But more and more people are coming forward, and women in particular, because the reservations in Panchayat has helped enormously. You know, some 15 years ago, I was traveling with the then Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh. As a journalist, I wanted to see his Panchayat scheme and how successful it has been. So he had this practice and habit of, just taking a helicopter from the state capital and with a map spread out in front of him, and broadly the route charted out, but then he would locate a biggish village from the window of the helicopter and instruct the pilot to land. So pilot would take a couple of rounds, the few rounds of the village would attract villagers, and then the helicopter would land at a field just outside. hundreds of villagers would come and gather, and on noticing the Chief Minister, they would be quite taken aback. And he would say, okay, put out some benches or some mattresses, let's sit and talk. In one particular village, I remember, there was a man sitting in the front row, made a small chair and sat in the front row. The Chief Minister asked him, "Bhai, aap kaun hai?" He gave his name and says, "Kya karte hain aap? Kya hai aap?" "Main Pati Sarpanch." You understand Pati Sarpanch? Ah, that's right. Husband of. And put out his visiting card, in which his name was written, Pati Sarpanch, Fala Fala village. So she was instructed to take the place which her husband had been occupying till then. Today, if you go to villages and you find a woman Sarpanch, no husband will occupy that seat. Nobody would dare. So times have changed so much in our villages, which, you know, many philosophers, European and Indian philosophers, mainly of the left orientation, have said this is, villages are cesspools of ignorance. They are cesspools of superstition. Yes, some of it is there. We see in Haryana, and Haryana carps what is happening, and Haryana is not alone. I don't want to single out Haryana, but this is a fact. And attitudes don't change purely by making people literate. Literacy has moved forward, agreed. But that's the first step. I would say the first baby step. Next is education. And education means imbibing a value system. And corporate governance is one of them. You specialize, you learn what corporate governance means, and then practice it in your daily life, in your business, and you inculcate that in other social organizations like panchayats. There are several schemes, official schemes, NGO schemes, which encourage young people to go and work in villages for this purpose only. I would like to see more and more of you take up these opportunities and challenges. Very big challenge, mind you. And once you've had that experience of going to a village, working in the panchayat, inculcating corporate governance values there where it's needed the most, you come back to the city, you will have even better, bigger and better opportunities. With these words, I don't want to add anything more. I think I've said what basically I came here to say. I hope some of what I have said will be internalized and you will accept the challenge, and I would like to see some of you get in touch with me and tell me, "Sir, I've gone to this village and I'm very happy there." I hope to see that day. Thank you very much.